Hi, I'm Nathan, and you're listening to the Queer Conscious Podcast. Hello, everybody. This is take 2 of recording this podcast. Unfortunately, I had my wisdom teeth taken out last week, and I thought I was better, but I was still a little bit swollen. So when I was listening to the episode back, I was slurring so many of my words that I couldn't understand a lot of the things I was saying. So I think an old version of me probably would have re-recorded the episode that night, stayed up late, making sure it was going to get out on time. I'm glad that is not me anymore. I am now a person that prioritizes rest. I prioritize quality. And I've realized the world is not going to end if I don't get this podcast out on Wednesday at midnight. So that being said, this episode is all about being a workaholic and tips on how to date if you really are busy. But what I want to start off with is, I'm just going to be direct with you guys here. Nobody is too busy to date. If you are too busy to date, you are too busy to have relationships. And if you're too busy to have relationships, it's not that you're too busy, it's that you're choosing to prioritize your career over these relationships. You're choosing to prioritize financial security over relationships. You're choosing to prioritize success over relationships. And that is okay. You're allowed to prioritize that over relationships. But don't lie to yourself and say that you can't choose something differently. Because what you aren't changing, you are choosing. And you're either choosing it intentionally or you're letting your nervous system choose for you out of survival. Okay, so don't worry. I get it. In this economy, yeah, a lot of us are working multiple jobs. We got our side hustle. Our culture is rooted in urgency and the economy doesn't make it any better. Okay, so I was raised by a workaholic. I became a workaholic and then I dated a workaholic. So I have a very interesting experience with work ethic. And I've also coached many people who are dealing with this overachiever mindset. So my dad was born in a small town called La Salca, and it's spelled exactly how it sounds. And he came to the United States when he was 14. His first job was picking oranges, very on brand. And then he started working in a factory and then eventually worked his way up and got a job back in Mexico, actually, as the director of manufacturing for the same company that he was working for in the United States, but they did their production down in Mexico. So they all left him down there because he spoke their language. He always advocated for better pay and breaks and better work environment. So it was kind of a beautiful full circle story coming from Mexico, going back and, helping the workers there. And I remember having a conversation with him a while back, and he was like, yeah, I was having trouble explaining to the director that nobody wanted to work overtime because in the US, when they'd have an overtime day, you'd get paid time and a half on a Saturday. People would come in, you'd make more money, and they'd get a lot of people wanting to volunteer to do that. And they did the same thing down there in Mexico. And he's like, yeah, no one showed up. He's like, and I had to explain to him, we didn't have the products because we didn't have the workers to do that. And he's like, yeah, I guess down there, they just, appreciate community more. They appreciate their family more. They're not really in the same hustle mindset as we are. So I went online to look at some statistics around work weeks and work habits. And what I found was actually the opposite. So this is very interesting. The average worker in the United States works about 1,750 hours per year. And that's declined over time. In the 50s and 60s, the average worker worked about 2,000 hours a year in the US. So I was expecting, hearing the story from my dad, that people in Mexico would have worked less hours. So get this. The average person in Mexico works 2,400 hours per person per year. I think it's fascinating that these people work so much more on average. And still, they are known for a vibrant culture centered around community, centered around family. It's the community that I grew up in, where we're always there for each other. We're always celebrating each other. There's parties and carne asadas every weekend to celebrate anything from my cousin losing his tooth to my cousin getting baptized. There's always something to celebrate. And in our society here in the United States, I hear so many of my friends complaining about the loneliness, about the culture, about this rugged individualism. that we strive to. Like, we have to do it ourselves and we can't lean on people. And it's almost embarrassing to lean on people for support. And in reality, I think they don't realize how nice it is to be able to be there for someone. So culturally, I think the US is set up more separate from one another. But back to my dad, he worked, 12 to 14-hour days. I remember he would get up at 4 a.m. He would drive down to Mexico. He'd be there all day and then drive back. Probably wouldn't get back till like 7 or 8 at night. And he was just exhausted. He'd just pass out on the couch. And he still made time for family things on the weekend, by the way. He was still able to prioritize us. But I just remember watching him and just feeling so bad for him. He worked so hard because he wanted to give us a better life. And I think part of it too, this immigrant story, this immigrant mindset, you want so badly to live that American dream, to make the most of these opportunities and to create a better life for your kids, that you sort of strive for this idealized version of what it means to be American. And then not only do you have that pressure, but then you put that pressure on your kids. And so growing up as children of immigrants, I definitely adopted that mindset as well. And I remember talking to him the other day, he was like, millennials nowadays are just so lazy. I'm like, oh, here we go. I'm like, really? You know how hard I work, first of all. And secondly, I think millennials have just seen our parents work so damn hard and have realized that it's not worth it. Not only that, but I think what we get in exchange for our work has dropped dramatically. So there's less incentive to then go into that workaholic mindset. But I still find many millennials who do work their asses off. They're working, 3 jobs and still barely making ends meet. Anyways, I did ask him, I was like, so if you had to go back, would you do anything differently? And he said, well, I don't think I would have worked as hard as I did. And I'm like, well, that's my point exactly. And I think that's what these new generations are realizing, that it's not worth it. And honestly, that lines up with the top 5 regrets that people have on their deathbed. And number 2 is, I wish I hadn't worked as hard. Number 4 is, I wish I would have stayed in touch with my friends. And you see where I'm headed with this. You work and work and work and race to your death. And then what? You have 10 years to live your life with probably minimal health because you didn't take care of yourself while you were working. Is it really worth it? Not for me. But yeah, it just kind of goes back to this pressure again, to belong, to fit in, to meet the expectations of others. And I think when you feel like you're different from everybody else, you feel even more pressure to stand out and to meet those expectations. There's a movie called Selena. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Jennifer Lopez stars as the lead actress. She's playing a famous singer from Texas. And she's a Hispanic singer. But the dad was talking to her in the car because she was going to go and do her first Spanish interview. And he's like, oh, you can't do that. You can't speak real Spanish. She's like, yes, I can. I sing in Spanish. He's like, no, you don't get it. Mexican Americans, we have to be better than the best. Like, we have to be more Mexican than the Mexicans. We have to be more American than the Americans. We have to know about Oprah and Christina. And I'm like, yeah, I feel that. But also, not only do I have to know about Oprah and Christina, I also have to know about RuPaul. There's all these different boxes of identities that in the past I felt like I had to strive towards being the best at. If I didn't speak perfect Spanish, I would get made fun of by my cousins. They would call me Casper too, because I, was more light-skinned. And then, of course, there's this concept of the gay card. And somehow, if you are not up to date on the latest pop stars, on the latest RuPaul challenges, that your gay card is going to be revoked. But all that teasing really creates this expectation for many of us and this need to strive to be better. So luckily, my dad's retired now and he's enjoying his life, enjoying his time with his granddaughters, and very happy for him. He's going on road trips to Vegas, to Utah, sending me pictures. I'm like, good for you. Please enjoy your life. But that mentality that came from my dad also impacted me. So I remember growing up, I wasn't just the short Mexican. I was the short Mexican with a limp wrist and the squeaky voice. So you better believe that when we had the social studies test, I was the first one to finish it because I wanted everyone to know just how smart I was. Again, in college, I couldn't just hold down the 3.9 GPA. I was also in leadership for the Environmental Studies Club. I had a part-time job working in environmental communication, and I also worked in a nonprofit developing curriculum. And then I locked down a full-time job just in time for graduation. Everyone's like, wow, Nathan, really? Like, you're graduating, you've already got full-time job set up with benefits. And I'm like, yeah, I have to hustle because that's what we do. We are hardworking Mexican Americans, and we are patriotic, and we love this country and all the opportunities we have. And my mom didn't get me hooked on phonics for nothing. Honestly, having that work ethic and having that hustle mentality really helped me get a lot of opportunities. So I don't want to knock it completely, but there is a point, which I'll talk about later, that it really impacted my mental health. As Henry David Thoreau says, the price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it. And I realized that not only had I been doing that, my dad had been doing that, and I didn't want to exchange relationships for work anymore. I was definitely one of those guys who was too busy to date, and it wasn't worth it. So what are some signs that you are tiptoeing the line of being a workaholic? So I'll give you 5 major signs here. So 1, you find yourself canceling plans or feeling disconnected from friends and family because work comes first. So if your friends are asking you, hey, I miss you, haven't seen you in a while, where have you been? Probably stepping into that territory. If you're struggling to relax or enjoy downtime without feeling unproductive or anxious, definitely a sign. If work occupies your mind during personal time, vacations, or social events, definitely a sign. If you find yourself skipping meals, having trouble sleeping, you're not exercising, it's not good for you. And last one here, if you're taking on more work than necessary, if you're always going above and beyond, checking emails late at night, taking on the overtime projects, struggling to say no to tasks, definitely a sign that you need some boundaries. So like I said before, no one is too busy to date. I told you, not only was my dad the workaholic, I was a workaholic, but I remember I dated someone who we spent a lot of time together in the beginning, and then as the relationship faded on, we were spending less and less time together. And it got to the point where I just didn't feel that same effort from him to address any challenges. He was giving me one-word text messages. We weren't having sleepovers anymore. And when I brought it up to him, finally, he told me point blank, there are more important things to do than text you. And I was pissed, of course, who wouldn't be? But I was also really grateful because he was at least honest and direct. He told me what his values were. There are more important things to do than text me and work on our relationship. And I'm like, you know what? That is fine. If that's your choice, great. But I know I deserve to be a higher priority in someone's life. If someone can't make time to talk about challenges in our relationship, to work on our relationship, that's not a relationship I'm interested in being in. So we lovingly and kindly parted ways. And, the thing is, it doesn't make him a bad person. It doesn't make me a bad person. Our values are just not in alignment. I think that's important to recognize when you are dating other people, how important it is to date people with values that are in alignment with yours. And are you okay with someone who's going to value work more than that relationship? It's complicated because, of course, you need the job to survive. You need the job to make money. But there's a certain point where that job becomes everything to you. And if you're not doing anything to address your personal life outside of that, you get lost in it. So let's get into some stories now from clients that I've worked with who have gone down this deep end of being a workaholic, but they really wanted to date. They really wanted to make time for community and relationships, and they just couldn't find the time. So I want to go into some stories about how they overcame that. So let's call her Lauren. So Lauren was working a very taxing 9-to-5. Okay, she was often asked to do work outside of work hours, and she felt like she couldn't say no. How many of you feel like you can't say no to things when your boss asks you to do things? I know it's scary. She could say no, but she was terrified of the repercussions. In this case, the repercussions for her were all around financial security. So for her, her value of financial security was more important than dating or relationships or love. And that's why she didn't have time to go on dates, or at least that's what she said. And if we go into Lauren's past a little bit more, she grew up with both parents working late nights, barely making ends meet, multiple jobs. And not only did she have to grow up fast to sort of take care of things around the house, but she adopted the same mindset of taking every financial opportunity there is available to you. Like her nervous system was still living out of that scarcity. So what we did in our sessions is we had to realign her values. Her values of financial scarcity were way higher than relationships. And what she failed to see was that her financial situation now was so much better than it ever had been, but her body was still saying, we're not safe yet. And so once we're able to create more safety around setting boundaries for her and release some of those deeper fears through some somatic work, then she was able to really feel safe setting boundaries. She was able to acknowledge where she was financially, whereas before she couldn't even recognize it. Like she saw her savings account. She's like, no, this is not enough. This will never be enough because what if something happens? And it's just a automatic response from our bodies that are trying to keep us safe. Now, luckily, we're able to work through a lot of that. And she was able to set some boundaries with her boss. And some she could, some she couldn't, right? The reality is some of you will face repercussions if you set too strong boundaries with your bosses. That's the sad reality of our country and our work culture. But a lot of bosses, you'll be surprised, will take kindly to those boundaries. They'll understand. They'll be very supportive. So anyways, so that's one example. I want to give another example. Let's call him Mark. So Mark was working a 9-to-5 job. And it wasn't really a 9-to-5 job because he was going in at 8 o'clock because they would schedule meetings without asking him at 8 o'clock. And then he would end up working till like 7, 8 at night. So Mark could not set boundaries. He could not say no, because if he did say no, he would just feel ashamed with himself. He'd be like, no, I would feel like a bad person. I wouldn't feel like I'm pulling my weight. I wouldn't feel like I'm putting value into the company. And what we realized is that his view of love was so diluted that he actually attributed his accolades, his achievements, and saying yes to people as his pathway to receiving love. Unfortunately, his sense of value outside of work was just non-existent. There was nothing, he had no sense of purpose, no sense of worth or value other than the company. Now, when we started coaching a little bit deeper around this, we realized that Mark's parents were Chinese immigrants, and they instilled in him a mindset that you are not as good as these other kids, and you have to work harder for people to see your worth and value. Now, they didn't tell him this straight out, but that was the message that he got from all the pressure that they put on him. And then to top it off, then he comes out as gay and they lose their shit. They're not okay with it. They don't want to talk about it. And so then he feels even more shame. He's like, okay, so now because I'm a son of Chinese immigrants and I'm gay, shit, now I really don't have value. So he goes into these work environments just saying yes, just trying to prove that he does have value. What Mark finally realized was that his value didn't come from his contributions, that he actually always had value. Just because he was a living, breathing human being, he deserved respect. He deserved just as much love, joy, and rest as anybody else did. So in our sessions, a lot of it was working on releasing this shame that he had from coming out, from the pressure he had from his parents in school, and then rebuilding his value outside of work. So where could he find value within himself? What were those qualities, characteristics, passions that we could then learn to ignite to give him some sense of worth outside of it? And then the accountability piece really helped him too. So just checking in every week. Are you setting your boundaries? Are you saying no? Are you making time for your workouts, for your mental health, for your peace of mind, for community? And then eventually, yes, he did start going on dates, which is good. So yeah, proud of Mark and Lauren. Their names aren't Mark and Lauren, but they know who they are. Being too busy is all about values. And you have to ask yourself, what is more important to you? Is it companionship or success? Is it connection or financial security? Is it hustling for your worth or is it your peace of mind? And I think we don't realize just how powerful we are. And I know some of you are sitting there thinking like, well, I have no other choice. I have to do this. Otherwise, I don't have the money to pay for where I'm living. And I totally get that. I totally empathize with how hard it is to make shifts in your life. But at the end of the day, what you don't change, you are choosing. And some of us just don't have the damn energy to make the changes that we need to in order to create the life we want to, because change takes work. And if we are already giving all of our best energy to these companies that don't give a shit about us, how would you expect to have any energy left for you in your life? Which is why boundaries in the workplace are so important. So again, we do live in a fast-paced world. So for those of us who are not quite workaholics, but we are just busy people, which happens, okay? Here are 4 tips, 4 amazing, beautiful tips on how to date while being a busy person. It's what you've been waiting for, okay? I know, but thank you for listening to the first part because I really hope some of you enjoy your lives more, okay? I care about you. Number 1. Oh, this is a good one. Stop waiting to make it. You're waiting to make it big. You're waiting to arrive and then finally say, yay, I'm here. I've reached peak success. And now I can enjoy life. No, it's not going to happen. It doesn't happen like that because there will always be a next step. Do you remember when you were a kid and you're like, I can't wait till I get to high school and then, then I'll have more freedom. And then you get to high school and you're like, oh, this is shit. I can't wait till I graduate and go to college and then I can have some real fun. And then you get to college and you're like, oh my God, college sucks. There's all this studying and responsibility and paying bills now. Then you're like, I can't wait to graduate college and then I can just have one job and then I'll just be living the dream. And then you graduate and you get your dream job and you realize, shit, God, this job sucks. I can't wait till I don't have this boss anymore. And then I can get a promotion and I can be the boss. And then you get the job and you get the promotion. And then you realize, fuck, this promotion sucks. There's even more responsibility here. I can't wait till I can retire and then I'll be able to enjoy my life. And then you retire and you're like, fuck, I'm old. I can't wait till I'm dead so that I can just not be alive anymore. The grass is always greener, my friends. So going back to my story on burnout, it was 2021. I had quit my job the year before and I was pursuing my coaching business full time. And I was working 6 days a week, 10 to 12 hour days. I was skipping meals. I would sneak into the kitchen, make a quesadilla, take bites in between clients. I wasn't working out. I had to quit my pole dancing membership because I couldn't afford it anymore. And so I wasn't getting physical activity. Oh my gosh. And then I woke up one morning and I just realized, oh, I'm depressed. This is not good. And I was depressed the whole time, but I didn't realize it because I just so busy trying to make ends meet and trying to make my business work. And it was such a difficult winter. I remember it. I went to Palm Springs to have my Eat, Pray, Love moment. And I was just hiking out in the desert and I just broke down in tears. I was alone. I know, very dramatic, but nature always made me happy. And even going out to that hike, I couldn't find enjoyment in the hike. And I realized I had forgotten who I was. I had lost myself to the work. This work was supposed to be my passion. This business was supposed to be the thing that I lived for, that gave me life, that was my thing, the thing that I was good at. And I lost myself doing the work. And it started kind of rolling back and I was realizing I'm not making time for myself, for friends, for community, for my mental health, for exercise, because I don't feel like I deserve it yet. My parents always told me we need to work hard. We are hardworking Mexican Americans, they would say. And then when I came out as gay, I was like, oh shit, I have to work twice as hard so they don't see the abomination that society has told me that I was. I have to work twice as hard so that I can prove to potential lovers that I am lovable. Look how successful I can be. And I didn't realize I'd always been lovable. I'd always been deserving of good things. And it clicked in that moment that I didn't have my dream job. If I had my dream job, I would be living my dream life too. And I definitely wasn't. Dolly Parton says, never get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life. And I completely forgot to make my life. So when I got back from my trip, I hired a personal trainer and couldn't afford it at the time, but, I put it on credit cards, made it work, changed my life. Okay. Hiring, support, coaches, personal trainers, mental health support, do all the things, because the next year, I would get up at 6 a.m. every morning. I would have a 4-hour morning routine, would not talk to a single client till 10 a.m. It changed my life. And it took me probably that whole year to recover from the burnout, to recover from the depression, to rediscover my purpose. But it happened in those quiet mornings. I'd get up, I'd go to the gym, I'd have my coffee, I would water my plants, I'd do my meditation, maybe even read. And in those quiet spaces in the morning, that was truly the game changer for me. So there we go. Long answer. Tip number 1, stop waiting around to make it. Make it happen now. Number 2, make it a routine. Make dating a part of your routine. If you're a type A person and you live by your calendar, put the damn dates in your calendar. This time, this day is going to be always blocked off for dates. Okay. Make it a weekly thing, make it a twice a month thing, be realistic with yourself, but make it a part of your routine. And then make it a routine to check your damn Tinder and Hinge messages. I know many of you have a bunch of matches that you have not responded to. Maybe I'm one of them. Okay. And you are not going to get anywhere if you don't respond. So after your lunch breaks, take 5-10 minutes, respond to your messages. After your dinner breaks, at night, before you go to bed. Okay, because you cannot develop a relationship if you're not putting the time investing in it. Make it a damn routine. Woo! Okay. Number 3, qualify your dates. Now, what do I mean by this? I don't mean to make sure they're a perfect hairless twink with a great credit score and has a good relationship with her mom. No. What I mean by qualifying your dates is asking yourself, do you genuinely see compatibility for a long-term partnership there? Do you guys want the same things? Kids, no kids, monogamy, polyamory? Are they one of those guys who are looking for a long-term relationship, or are they still figuring it out? Okay. So be realistic with yourself. What can help you in qualifying your dates is doing a quick phone call before you even go on the date, having a FaceTime call. It's not weird to do that. It's actually helpful because you get a little vibe check and you're like, okay, is this person really someone I could see myself being with? Last one here, number 4, focus on the second date. Now, what do I mean by that? Be really desperate and make sure you're super interesting so that he asks you for a second date? No. But what I mean by this is a lot of you busy-minded people are the same type of people who will see one thing wrong with that person and instantly write them off. You might have a mediocre first date. Might be awkward conversation at first. But if you want a healthy relationship, that's going to take time. It's going to take time to build. So be patient and only eliminate people who are true red flags, truly not compatible with what you want. Okay. And even if you're not attracted totally on the first date, okay, because attraction can build. Okay. And if you're not feeling it by the second, third date, fine. Okay. But give them a fucking chance. You guys want that fucking Disney spark or nothing. Grow the fuck up. Okay, I'm getting angry with you guys. Some of you only will listen if I talk to you like this because you've got some daddy issue that you just need to be yelled at. Okay, so there you go. You got me yelling at you. All right, so let's recap. Stop waiting around to make it. Make your life the way you want it now. Make time for your mental health, make time for community, make time for dates. Make dating a routine. Okay, dating weekly, bi-weekly. Check your messages on your lunch breaks and before you go to bed in the mornings. Qualify your dates. No, not by their six-pack and what they bring to the table physically, but on true compatibility. And lastly, focus on getting that second date. So I want to end on a fun quote here. Can we end on a fun quote? Workaholics aren't heroes. They don't save the day. They just use it up. The real hero is at home because they figured out a faster way. That was Jason Fried. I don't know who that is. Don't we love that? Workaholics aren't heroes. You're not a hero. Take a break. God, you're making us look bad. And now, a word from one of our sponsors. Hi, my name's Nathan from Queer Conscious, and I'm the sponsor of the Queer Conscious podcast. Yeah, sounds a little bit Inception-y. So if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably interested in dating, and you probably don't have a lot of time. So I've got an opportunity for you. I've got a workshop coming up at the end of January. It's 3 days, 90-minute webinars, and if you can't watch them live, you can always watch the recordings. And it's going to get you kickstarted into taking dating more seriously. We're going to find out why you're single. We're going to teach you how to spot red flags, how to clean up some of your own, and help you to communicate like an adult. So if taking dating and relationships seriously sounds like something that you want to do this year and you're just tired of being alone, this workshop's for you. You even get a bonus call with me, and in that call, we can help figure out what's getting in the way of you building and creating healthy relationships. So if you want to join, click the link in the description. It's called Gay Love and Logic, and for a limited time, you get $25 off. All right, check it out. Love you guys. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Queer Conscious Podcast, where we explore how love feeds us, heals us, and gives us life. I'm your host and queer love coach, Nathan Serrato. But remember that the conversations that we're having here today are not a replacement for working with a licensed therapist, professional coach, or mental health practitioner. These conversations are for entertainment and education purposes only. But if you are dealing with some big challenges and you're thinking about seeking some professional support, it is one of the most empowering things that you can do for yourself. You can visit queerconscious.com for more information on how to do that. Now, if you love today's episodes and you want more episodes like this, I need your help. Please leave a 5-star rating and review. That's going to help me to bring you more high-quality content and interviews. So until then, take care of yourself and don't forget to let love in.